Hey there everyone, Coach Mark here. Before I dive into today's topic, make sure to find me over on Instagram as Coach Mark Estrabio. Also, I offer one-to-one coaching. It's what I do full-time. Odds are very good. I'd love to work with you. And you can apply for coaching down in the description box below. But with that being said, let's get into it. So it's going to be a pretty simple one today. All I'm going to be doing is talking about the prep program that I wrote for Orlando's Strongest Man 2. There are both a 4 and 3 day version of the program. I'll be talking over the 4-day version of the program, as the 3-day version of the program is more or less the same, except day 3 becomes a combination of days 3 and 4 from the 4-day, but I'll discuss that as well. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to add in 2 additional shorts that I did discussing DIY solutions for both the circus dumbbell and the Husafeld stone carry. So as far as the program itself goes, just a few quick notes before I really dive in here. The program is heavily percentage based, and the reason why I opted for this is for a lot of intermediate lifters, people who are doing more self-programming, who don't have a coach, who are maybe still getting the gist of things. Percentages work nicely, and then over time, obviously, as you get more experienced, you're probably going to switch over to RPE. I like using both systems, so why not? Additionally, most accessories, think RPE 7 to 8 on them. Straps on your deadlift working sets. The circus dumbbell, you're only going to train it on your working arm. Instead, what you want to do is add in extra sets on unilateral accessories rather than trying to get your circus dumbbell to be equally strong on both sides. It rarely works out well in competition. Additionally, for both the deadlift and circus dumbbell events for Orlando's, I have 2 paths available. One, if it's going to be more of a rep fest event for you, if you are someone who feels like you can get 3 or more repetitions with a given load, and then more of a heavy path where if it's a weight that maybe you're good for 1 or 2, or maybe it's a 1 rep max for you, that way you have options available. So there's 4 total main lift paths available to you. There's heavy dumbbell, reps dumbbell, heavy deadlift, reps deadlift, but as always, you can recycle these for future training waves as well, so that's just something useful. And as always, I am so very sorry circus dumbbell showed up as an event in this show. It was not my choice. So, day 1 is your primary pressing day, and what you want to think about here is the circus dumbbell is being done with Trump rules, so there's a heavier one and a lighter one, so depending on where you're at, you'll pick either the heavy or reps path using a percentage based upon that load you're going to be working with. Then after that, our 60-degree incline press with pauses at the bottom, a 1-arm row of your choosing, face pulls, and Russian twists. And the entire thesis here is we're just building up plenty of volume and a lot of support for your capabilities. I find that the incline press with a pause at the bottom is a really valuable pressing accessory for the strongman athlete, especially when we look at the position of pausing off of the chest. The circus dumbbell is very awkward in that rack, so if we can get stronger in that bottom base with that inclination, we're going to extract a lot of benefit, and it's going to carry over more directly to our circus dumbbell as opposed to something such as a Smith machine touch and go shoulder press. Now, in weeks 5 through 8 on our primary pressing day, what you'll see here is we're swapping out the incline press for a floor press with 3 count eccentrics. And the reason why we opted for the floor press here is it's going to take some pressure and strain off of the shoulder as you're really in the tail end of the peak with your circus dumbbell. We want to think about movements that are going to spare the joints. Additionally, the floor press is great for overloading your triceps. And the eccentrics will keep us honest from going too heavy, as well as crash landing and trying to bounce our elbows off of the floor. When you're doing a floor press, you want to think that your elbows are lightly kissing the floor. Additionally, consider putting a yoga mat underneath your upper back so your scapula can move freely. Shoulder health is one of those things we really want to think about. And what I found is the floor press, everyone talks about how good it is for your shoulders, but a lot of people will also complain because their scaps can't move freely, and that's because they're pinned in place by the ground. So again, use the yoga mat, comes in extremely handy. Day 2, this is going to be our deadlift and move day. And again, you have 2 options available to you, either a heavy path or a reps path for the deadlift. And then what we're going to be doing is you're going to be doing alternating weeks with the frame carry and H-stone carry. So on the weeks that you train the frame, you're only doing picks on the H-stone, and then vice versa. On the weeks you're carrying the H-stone, you're just going to be doing practice picks on the frame. And if you don't have access to a frame, use a trap bar. And with the H-stone, if you wait to the end of this video, I actually discuss ways you can train it without it. But something like a trap bar zercher hold or just a barbell zercher is going to be a viable alternative here. Then after that, we'll do some deficit barbell rows. I strongly suggest doing these without straps. That way you can build your grip strength, which is going to help out immensely when it comes time for the sandbag work. And something worth mentioning is if you do have access to a Swiss bar here, I'd prefer to use that over a barbell, especially if you were to add fat grips to it. Then after that, we're just going to do some adductor work here, strengthen the inner thighs. Adductors are really important for moving event stability, and they actually do help you in the start phase of your deadlift. And considering that this show is being done with a power bar on the deadlift, that's something we want to be really cognizant of. And the second block, weeks 5 through 8, it's really just more of the same here. There's not too much to discuss. The movements stay the same. We just continue to ramp up the intensity while dropping volume. Moving into day 3, this is sort of our secondary pressing day. It's a lot of tech and accessory work. So what will happen is you're going to start with complexes. You're going to do just working up 3 cleans with a 5-second hold in the rack to 2 push presses in week 1. And then in week 2, it's 3 cleans, same thing with the hold, 2 push presses. But then in weeks 3 and 4, you'll see that we drop down to 2 cleans and 3 push press, because by now you should have a really good familiar position with your clean. So we're just going to try and work and overload that press. If you can't do this with a circus dumbbell, you'll do this with the 1-arm dumbbell. Again, at the end of the video, I talk about sort of a DIY situation there. Then after our circus dumbbell complex, we're going to do some behind the neck push press. Now I do like the BTN push press for transference to the circus dumbbell because the rack position on it, you're going to have your arms out a little bit. It just helps open up the chest and also gives you a good consistent range of motion because the bar is going to come down to your traps every single time. We're keeping the RPE 7 to 8 here, just getting practice. And if you are not able to do this with behind the neck style, just do a standard front push press. Then after that is going to be a 1-arm landmine press. And something I like to do here to help kind of stay ahead of imbalances is add an extra set on your non-competition arm. Don't try to peak both arms for circus dumbbell, especially if it's a heavier one for you. You're not going to get much out of it. And in the event you don't have access to a 1-arm landmine, just do some 1-arm dumbbell presses. Lou raises, dumbbell windmills, and then behind the neck lat pull downs to help round out your shoulder stability and help build that upper back a little bit more to give you a bit more purchase for that circus dumbbell. And then as we move into weeks 5 through 8, you'll see that the complex is just 12 minutes in week 5 and then 10 minutes in week 6. 2 cleans, 2-second hold in the rack position, and then 2 paused dip drive push press. We've improved your clean, we've improved your rack. Now we're just going to spend the last little end tail here of our block improving your dip drive mechanics so you can get a little bit more out of it. Remember, you're doing your heavier work early in the week. This is just skill and position reinforcement. And then as far as your accessories go, it's more of the same, just continuing to volumize where necessary and build more stability in that. And then last but not least is day 4. This is essentially our squat, load, and lower body accessory day. So it's going to start with paused front squats, or you could do paused Zercher squats if you're not able to get the position of a front squat. Sandbag over bar, or if you don't have access to the sandbag, doing Zercher triple extensions would be a very viable alternative here. Some front foot elevated split squats or reverse lunges, resistance band good mornings or reverse hypers, and note that we're doing time under tension sets here as opposed to straight weight. And the reason why I wanted time under tension here, good for building work capacity, and also we're just pushing a bunch of blood into that posterior chain. You want to use a load that's something you get around 15 to 20 reps with, and let's say by the end of your 45-second set, you're not getting full reps, just try to do partials, just do holds, just try to stay working through that entire time frame. Then some ab wheels and classic landmine rotations. The landmine rotation I think is worth taking a second to really discuss for the strongman athlete. This is so good for building torso strength, as in not just your core, but also your upper back, your midline. That way you're not folding during those heavy carries, and you're going to be able to maintain a good position on the H-stone, for example. So landmine rotations are one that I think most of us should be doing year-round. Just quick aside right there. And then as we move into block 2, weeks 5 through 8 on day 4, what you'll see here is we swap some of the movements around. We're now just going to do kneeling cable crunches and side planks. And then additionally, we're no longer using time under tension sets, but just sets across, because in the first block, we did a lot of volume with those time under tension sets. So now we're just sort of maintaining through there as we peak our strength elsewhere in the program to get ready for the competition. And then speaking of the competition, this would be what I suggest for the week of. So for example, you're competing on Saturday. Monday, you do that workout, the day 1 workout, and then Tuesday or Wednesday, do the day 2 workout. Because then what you'd want to do after that is, if you are doing a water cut, you're not going to be able to train. And then regardless of whether or not you did do a weight cut, once you're done weighing in, make sure to go touch the implements if you're able. Get a little practice on them, feel them out, because unless you're actually training at the host facility, what you have is going to be a little bit different. Now, for those of you who are going to be training 3 days a week instead of 2 days a week, days 1 and 2 are unaffected. Day 3 becomes a hybrid day, so we'll have the pause front squats, the dumbbell complex, BTN push presses, sandbag over bar, split squats, and landmine rotations. So this is essentially a squat, press, and load day with a few targeted accessories. Overall, it's the same general flow, but what we want to do is really focus on making sure that with this day, because of how grueling it's going to be, you're well fueled into it. Honestly, if you are training on the 3-day-a-week protocol, I think this might be the hardest day of the training week. So you can see, again, the protocols are the exact same. We're just dropping a few movements and condensing the training day accordingly. That way we can hit all of our big important movements to peak properly for Orlando's Strongest. So that really wraps up this video. As you can see, it's a pretty simple to understand program. If you are looking to get your copy, just join the Strongman Institute Discord. We got the PDF there waiting for you. For everyone competing at Orlando's Strongest Man, we wish you the absolute best. And let's see, aside from that, if you are running the program, let me know how it goes. Don't hesitate to reach out and ping me in the Discord. And for those of you who are looking for some DIY solutions for both the circus dumbbell and the H-stone carry, keep watching after this because I'm just going to stitch in a couple shorts that I did discussing these two events. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.
Trading the Husafeld stone without access to a Husafeld. If you don't have access to the H-stone, but you've got a trap bar, you're in business. Again, this is one of those close enough type situations. This is going to help you train that pick and the carry. You'll want to set your arms as wide as possible. It's also something worth mentioning. I do think a traditional closed trap bar would actually be better than the one I'm using here. And the reason why is it'll keep you from setting this up more like a squat and actually doing a true hinge to get that pick off the ground. But again, close enough is better than nothing at all. So make sure to give these a shot if you're training for Orlando's Strongest Man, or if you're in general training for an H-stone event and you don't have access to one. If you signed up for a strongman competition with a circus dumbbell, but you don't have access to a circus dumbbell, let me talk to you. An objectively horrible event. The circus dumbbell is showing up in a lot of competitions, but if you're someone who chooses positivity in their day-to-day life and doesn't have a circus dumbbell, I'm going to show you how to get something that's close enough for most applications. All you'll need is a piece of 1.5-inch diameter pipe or dumbbell handle, a fat grip if you're not using the pipe, and potentially a strap, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So if you are just using the dumbbell handle and you put the fat grip on it, depending on the manufacturer, you'll notice that fat grip is not going to be secure. And that's where our friend, the strap, comes in. If you feed your strap through the fat grip handle and then add it to your dumbbell handle, you'll see here, it gives enough purchase that it no longer shifts around, making for a much more stable pressing experience. Now, talking about your pressing experience, something worth doing, especially for the gentleman here, is when you're loading this thing, if you're putting 25s and 10s on it, put the 25s on the outside. That way you have the greater diameter closest to your body. It's also going to make it a bit less stable for the pressing, which is exactly what you need because this implement is fickle, moody, and it hates you. Now, something worth talking about as well is clamps. Now, depending on your dumbbell handle or the pipe you use, your standard clamps might not be enough. In which case, I highly recommend buying high-grade ones that you screw down. Otherwise, as a good stopgap, consider feeding a strap through your clamps, and then again, what that does is much like the fat grip, it gives you a bit more bite. Doesn't work on this one though because it's a pretty good piece. However, if you are opting to use that 1.5-inch pipe, for example, this becomes invaluable. And remember, if you are competing in the upcoming Orlando's Strongest Man, make sure to stay tuned where we're going to be dropping an 8-week free prep program for the show.